Y'all ready? Fish Stripes Live, the day right after the World Series. We have a lot of news to talk about, a lot of topics to discuss. We have some special guests, Mike Anthony and Angel Rossi. Welcome to Fish Stripes. And we have the usuals, Eli Sussman, Isaac Azut, and Noah Berger. Alex Carver hopefully joins a little bit later. But let's get into, I guess, the most fresh news off the press, which is Buster Posey retires. I'm just going to read out his career stats: 44.9 WAR, 4,970 at bats, 1,500 hits, 158 homers, 302 batting average, 663 runs, 729 RBIs, 23 stolen bases, 460 slugging, 372 OBP, and 831 OPS. For sure, a long and successful career, as he did win a World Series. He got a couple Gold Gloves, I'm pretty sure. Isaac, let's start with you here, man. What are your thoughts on the Buster Posey announcement? I think a little bit surprising for most of us.
Yeah, definitely surprising. Just based on the fact that he's walking away from $22 million. He's walking away from a chance to just sort of cement himself as a surefire Hall of Famer. And it's a Giants team. Well, sort of makes sense now why the Giants were so reluctant to part with a guy like Joey Bart. But something that's interesting to me, Bob Nightingale tweeted out, there are 16 catchers in the Hall of Fame, and only 3 of them have less than 1,600 hits, which, like you just said, he has less than that. So it's interesting to me because I think with a couple more years, it'd be a surefire first ballot one, but it was definitely a surprising news of the day.
Mike Anthony, welcome to Fish Stripes, man. Welcome to the show. What are your thoughts on Buster Posey and his retirement?
From what I feel like, it's like a situation where I feel like he saw a way out, the perfect way to end his career. That knee injury that happened, because of, I think it was Scott Cousins from the Marlins, probably derailed his career probably a few years. And, winning 107 games with the Giants and having, 300 batting average, he probably saw this was the time to go home and take care of those twins he adopted last year that I remember.
Noah, your thoughts on the Posey retirement?
I was a little surprised. I think he for sure has a few more years left in the tank. Maybe not left in his knees, but he for sure has some left in his tank. He was consistently a great catcher and a great hitter. I think maybe one more year would have given him 100% chance of a first ballot Hall of Fame. I still think he should be in the Hall of Fame. Just the consistency that he's put up his numbers in the regular season, postseason. He's just a consistently good player. And being a catcher in the major leagues is not an easy task. You could just ask Alex Jackson.
Angel, man, welcome to the show. What are your thoughts on Buster Posey and his retirement?
The internet, the signal on the train is not so good.
Yeah, Angel's on a train. Our first-time panelist. We hope to get him back. We appreciate his support and his takes. One thing we didn't bring up on Posey is really one thing that put a dent in his career stats is that he sucked against the Marlins. 58 career games against the Marlins. He had 249 by his standards. Just a 677 OPS. Only 3 home runs in those games. A lot of those games. Let me take a look. Yeah, kind of spread out year after year. This year, he played them a few times, and he did nothing in those games. For whatever reason, they were one of his toughest opponents, and that kind of drags everything down for him. So Marlins fans maybe have like a warped view of him. Maybe they see him and they don't realize exactly how exceptional he is. He really has been it's incredible. And catcher is a position that's been it's undervalued by people as much as all the intangibles that we point out about it, as much as like players themselves try to drive it home how important it is. And we see all these catchers advance to like really important positions in baseball after their playing days. They become the managers, they become in some cases front office executives, and that's because the position demands so much. So I really can't say enough about how incredible he was and how frustrating it is that the Marlins just missed out on him. People may recall they had an opportunity to draft him they had the pick directly ahead of, or was it directly behind? Let me double check that because it was so close to drafting him. I think they just missed out on him by one pick. That's right. They had the pick directly behind the Giants in that draft, and it ended up taking Kyle Skipworth instead. They took a good catcher, they thought, as a prep player, but he turned out to be nothing in the pros. And as it turns out, that one draft spot made, an enormous difference for these two franchises.
Yep, and we're going to get probably into the bigger news. Magneris is gone from the Marlins. This is probably the best news we'll get today. He was outrighted
Imagine
to
if he
AAA.
was watching this, by the way.
We love Mags, but he's gone. And
it's time to go!
See, in the pre-show, Eli was right on time with that little clip.
I was waiting
He was
for
a
him to
little
see
late
me.
this time.
Yeah, but Sierra got
No homers with the big league
waivers,
club.
and he ended up just going to AAA. So he stays with the organization, but I guess he's no longer in the major league team. Noah, what are your thoughts on this? Since you were a former Magneris Sierra stan, and you were a big fan of the guy.
I was a semi big fan of the guy. He's not that great of a player. He's a great guy off the field, not really great on the field. I wish him the best. I hope he does well in AAA. I don't think he may get another chance with another team. I don't think it'll be with the Marlins, unless of course we get hit by another injury bug where we're forced to bring him up. I don't think he will be back in the majors with the Marlins.
Mike Anthony, your thoughts?
I remember that series that he went off against us in Miami when he was a Cardinal, and I thought when we got him that he was a steal. I'm like, whoa, we got this guy that no one really knows, and he's gonna hit like crazy. And then he came here, and he was the definition of a punching Judy. That guy had probably the exit velo of like 45 as a Marlin, and it sucks because he's probably like two generations. If he was playing 2 generations ago, he'd probably be really good.
Yeah.
But it's just we're in a game where we need extra base hits, and he's not the answer.
Eli, I mean,
well, that's a good point about him being just born in the wrong era, right?
Yeah.
Like his skills, you love a guy like this in a certain day and age where base stealing was encouraged at a different level, and when nobody was hitting it out of the park at the same level. So by comparison, though, it just in today's day and age where everybody can hit home runs once in a while, and he's the only one who doesn't. He has played 233 major league games and he has 0 home runs. There's nobody else like that in the majors.
And it's not like it's impossible because he's probably the same exact build as Cedric Mullins, and he just hit 30. It's his approach, and that's why he's outright at AAA, and Cedric Mullins is all-star.
Yeah, Mags, if you ever get the chance to see him outside of the general game itself, he's pretty jacked. He packs a lot of strength on his frame. He's not that much different physically as Jazz Chisholm, and we know
he's
that Jazz.
I've seen Jazz, and he's probably stronger arm wise than Jazz.
Right. So it just shows that
different approaches.
Different. Yeah, at the plate, he just hasn't fine-tuned his game to suit this current day and age, and he doesn't do enough. He's brings some positives as a base runner and as a fielder, but not enough to make it make sense. So to me, I wish we had Alex Carver on here because he's definitely overjoyed about this. He was on the position that Mags should have been gone maybe a full year ago. To me, once the team made those trades at the deadline and it was clear that they weren't focused at all about this year and just looking to the future, they could see that Mags was out of minor league options and that they just know that he is this limited player who doesn't even have that upside of being an everyday starter. Then you start looking to the future. I thought they should have at that time, cut the cord and given more playing time to a Brian Miller or to a Bryson Brigman, or find a more creative way to get Lewin Diaz on the roster, even if it meant him playing outfield every once in a while. That's what's frustrating is the missed time that they carried him down the stretch, and he was riding the bench even behind Brian De La Cruz when we didn't know anything about De La Cruz. They just when they got anybody, when they got him, when Lewis Brinson, when he got called back up after the All-Star break, these guys, they considered like anybody to be a better starting option than Mags, which just makes you question why he was on the roster in the first place. If they didn't think he should be on the field in important situations. It was overdue, but yeah, I just want to be clear with everybody that he does stay in the organization. And so unless something unusual happens this offseason, probably the plan is for him to be in spring training as like a non-roster invitee, just to kind of fill out spring training camp and to be there as a backup plan in case, you know, the injuries pile up. But he's still around. You can't totally rule out the possibility that he does play for the Marlins in the majors again. It's unlikely, but not totally impossible.
Yeah. Isaac, your thoughts?
I think everyone just did a great job of, crediting their displeasure on the player. Very nice guy. And like you guys mentioned, I've seen him like when I cover games and he's there with like just the undershirt. He's a physically built guy. You would think, okay, this guy could hit 10 home runs, but like you said, Eli, in 564 at bats, 540, plate appearances, he's hit 0 home runs. He slugs less than his on base percentage. So he just has no role in today's game, unfortunately. And who knows, maybe he'll be like a base running specialist on a contending team in the future.
Can't wait to hear this one. Alex, Carver, welcome to the show, man. Your thoughts on Mag no longer, at least on the MLB level, outrighted AAA.
Yeah, no, I don't. What's up, guys? First of all, but I don't wish anything bad on the player. I don't do that to any player at all. I mean, hopefully he can figure out hitting and come back. He's still in the organization, so as Eli said, I don't think that's likely, but it is what it is. It's long overdue. The only frustration that I really had is that he was getting chance after chance after chance over other players that should have been here. So that was my frustration with him. But no, I don't like to see any guy get cut or anything like that. But so it's a business, and if it's about winning, you can't be giving roster spots to guys that have gotten chances and not done much with them. So yeah, wish him well. Hopefully he can get back up. I doubt it, but yeah, wish him the best for sure. But no, I'm not going to wish bad on a player. But from the business side, this needed to be done a long time ago.
Yeah. Another news: Mel Sondheimer, pitching coach, coming back. Alex, your thought on this, man? I mean, he's a big piece of this staff, so it made 100% sense to bring him back. Seeing how he worked with Sandy, Pablo, especially Trevor, and hopefully Luzardo. Luzardo looked pretty sharp at the end of the season. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's great, of course, for all the reasons that you just said. The main thing is that I want the man healthy. We heard the diagnosis that came out for him, which is terrible. He kind of kept it under wraps because he didn't want to distract the players. So I think that speaks a lot to this man, that he kept the cancer diagnosis in the bag basically all year because he didn't want to distract the team. So completely selfless dude, really committed to it, as you can tell. So yeah, a guy that's done wonders for a lot of the pitching staff and a great guy to have around any young team or any team, but especially a young team. Done wonders with Trevor, Pablo, Sandy, multiple guys. And as you said, Luzardo, maybe the next in line, Edward, figure his stuff out. So yeah, great to see, but just want the guy to be healthy.
Eli, your thoughts on the return of Mel Stoudemire?
Yeah, it was, the understanding is it was just a formality. Like everybody knew how much the Marlins valued him and that he seems to get along well with everybody else on the coaching staff. It was just a matter of time, of just every time in place. October is the month where you usually sort out the coaching things, although that's still going to be a storyline with the Marlins. They have a couple positions to fill. They need to figure out assistant hitting coach. They need to figure out third base coach. And it seems that everything else will eventually be hammered out aside from that. So overall, it's fewer coaching changes than we probably expected out of this staff, based on how disappointing the year was overall. So that's kind of what I come back to, is that he was the no-brainer to bring back for sure. With some of the other ones, it's a little bit it's interesting that they're not putting the blame on those coaches, and that would point to hopefully being more aggressive on the player front and realizing that some of the play you just simply didn't have the talent to get it done, and that you'll have to make the necessary investment in prospects and more so in free agent money to bridge that gap and give these coaches more talent to work with, because they did not have much at times during last season, especially what Mel did. He, in several cases, you can point to not just the top prospects, but making Zach Thompson and Anthony Bender and Stephen Okert, and those guys, I think he definitely deserves some credit for doing that now for a couple of years now, turning these non-roster minor league guys into really significant role players. That doesn't happen on its own. That's not just luck. That's coming up with a plan and really giving those guys the attention they deserve to get to a new level that they haven't reached before.
Mike Anthony, your thoughts on the return of Mel?
Man, I love it. Being a lifetime, Marlins fan, seeing the change in our pitching from when this new regime came in is incredible. We had guys come in that were really, really bad before. Like, we could just throw names like Tom Kohler, Adam Conley, all these weird guys from the past. And now
What did Tom Kohler do to you, bro?
Yeah, whoa,
I'm
what's
just
the
saying-
TK slander?
I was
I'm
about to
not
say,
saying, I'm just saying like that now we have 5-6 guys that next year are coming into the season that are total dudes, and he's making random guys come up like Steven Oker and all these guys, and they just look solid. I'm just excited, and I think he's the focal point of that pitching staff.
Isaac, what does the future for Mel hold, especially with all the pitching coming in? Max Meyer, he still has time to work with Eddie, Sixto. What does that hold for Mel?
It's just like sort of like a dynasty type thing with your pitching coach. You would like it to be that way because, you have guys from rookie ball in the Baseball America article. They said it, from rookie ball all the way to the major leagues. You just have studs after studs after studs. So just to have that consistency and that continuity with Mel Stoudemire Jr., working with all these guys in Major League Spring Training, and maybe I'm sure he helps out with Minor League Spring Training and helping out all these guys, turning Cody Poteet into something. It's just really awesome. You just look at the pitching coaches, like, we used to have, I think Chuck Hernandez was a pitching coach, Randy St. Clair was a pitching, and like
Juan Nieves.
when you have Mel, it's just, and I've spoken to him, he had a couple of media sessions. He's a really articulate guy who knows what he's doing, and he simplifies everything, it seems, for players like Sandy and Trevor and Luzardo. So it's huge for him to be here.
Noah, what are your thoughts on Mel?
I couldn't be happier that he's coming back. I want him healthy. He, first and foremost, he needs to be healthy. If he's not healthy, he should take his time away from the team. But I don't think he ever will. He's pretty much what got us any wins this past season was Mel Stoudemire and the pitching staff. There's no other way to put it. Without him, this team is not where it is right now.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that as well. Sorry, Kevin, about his health situation. That just shows like the kind of character that he is. Keeping that underground for the whole team. No one knew about it. It was released in the Miami Herald article with Barry Jackson and Craig Mish. And just I'm sending my prayers to him and his family. Hopefully, he'll be at 100% sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Mel.
One thing I do want to add, I was a little surprised that they didn't even tinker at all with any of the hitting coaches. I was a little surprised by that.
Well, the assistant hitting coach, Robert Rodriguez, just him. But you're right. I mean,
yeah, I was a little surprised that nothing was even said about the current hitting coaches after the abysmal hitting that we had at the major league level this past season.
Yeah, I think the one that really surprised me the most was Eric Duncan not, I guess, getting fired or leaving the organization. Although his 2020 was good, 2021, which is a full season, a full exam, we could see the whole thing. It didn't work out for Eric Duncan. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that, but I guess moving on to
I will say it sometimes it's not just on the coach. Sometimes the players, just the talent is not there.
Yeah, that's also true. I guess Marlin related news in a way, it impacts the Marlins, obviously, the catching position. Tucker Barnhart got traded, I guess, to the Detroit Lions for
Detroit Tigers.
Detroit Tigers, stupid Lions, I swear to God.
And it's so much time watching football, Kevin.
Yeah, Detroit Tigers. I'm not sure for who right now. I kind of forgot. It was on my head.
It was one prospect that was coming off a really down year. Let me get the name. Quintana.
Yeah.
Nick Quintana.
Yeah.
In a way, it does impact the Marlins because, I guess we're going after a catcher. He could have been a good option if Contreras didn't work out or we didn't get Stallings. But I guess starting with Eli, what are your thoughts on the trade and how it impacts the Marlins? Because I know you've been doing the off-season shopping.
Right. Yeah. We are 4 down, 1 to go with this series on off-season shopping targets. Probably covered over 50 players at this point, and he was one of the first ones. We put him at the top because he was coming off a not very good year by his standards, where he was in a timeshare with Tyler Stevenson, who is a much younger player who has more offensive upside. But this guy in Barnhart, he was a 2-time Gold Glove Award winner, still seemingly not far removed from the prime of his career. He's going to turn 31 in January, And so this is a situation where it seems the Reds kind of panicked here. They just rushed into a trade because they didn't want to pay him $7.5 million next year. They wanted to offload the money while also getting some sort of prospect compensation in return. And apparently the Marlins weren't one of those teams that were like chomping at the bit to like go after him. And I don't totally blame them, because this is a huge decision, a huge position of need. They need to get this right for the Marlins. And most likely they want to get it right with a player that has multiple years of control instead of Barnhart, who's a 1-year stopgap type. He's a pretty good stopgap type, and he'd be the best catcher on the Marlins right now. I mean, as much as we were intrigued by some of the things we saw from the young guys down the stretch, I think Barnhart would easily slide into the primary spot if they were to get him. But instead, I think they should be taking their time and looking at turning over every rock that they can to get the right experienced catcher. And I wouldn't blame. There are some guys that do have some more offensive upside, and they want to wait for that. That's really fine by me.
Alex, your thoughts on the trade and how does it impact the Marlins going?
Yeah, I agree with what Eli said. I mean, you're a day after the World Series, and they pretty much just took probably the first thing that they came across, because the guy that they got is, I comped him to Joe Dunand, a guy, and Dunand's been in the league a lot longer. This guy's only been around like 3 years, I think, as a prospect, and he's coming off a really bad year. He's like 25 years old or something, 25, I think I saw that he was. So yeah, they pretty much just got a low B-type prospect back for him, and it's an older guy, as Eli said. He's 31 years old and coming off of not a great year with the bat. He would have fit for the Marlins because he's a good receiver and he's good defensively, but so is Sandy Leon. I mean, this guy's better than Sandy Leon offensively and has been in his career, but you got to get it right? They have to make a splash. You know, if they get Barnhart stopgaps for 2 years, but who is he stopgapping to? Because unless Will Banfield figures it out, you have no answer. So yeah, they have to get it right. They have to really get a name in the catching position. And Tucker Barnhart, even though he's a decent player, he's only got probably a couple years left, especially for a catcher getting older. I would say he probably has 2 years left. So yeah, I mean, looks like the Reds just threw him away for the first thing that they could get, and have Stevenson now as their catcher of the future. So that's why they did it. And yeah, it doesn't impact the Marlins that much, I don't think. I think he was probably at the lower end of the spectrum of what the Marlins want to get back the catcher position. So I had him as a name that they could possibly target if everything else fell through, but it's not that big of a deal in my opinion.
Mike, your thoughts on the trade? And I mean, now that he's gone, we look into free agency. What could be some options the Marlins could look at? There's obviously Zunino and a couple others, and somehow bringing back Sandy Leon, which I know we've discussed on the show.
To me, I think it doesn't affect us that much. I felt that he wasn't really a guy we're going to go after, even though there's been some rumors here and there. I think the perfect fit is the guy we all probably want is Contreras. I think he's the perfect fit in terms of him being a Hispanic background, and the offense tool is just too great for this team to not try to acquire him. And I don't think, since he's a 1-year guy, I don't think the price tag's going to be too big.
Yep. Noah, your thoughts on the deal?
The catcher position is already a thin market, and it just got a little bit thinner twofold now that Buster Posey's retiring and Tucker Barnhart just got traded. I would like to see the Marlins go after Contreras or Stallings, one of the two, please God. But I don't know. Time will tell.
Yeah, just wrap it up with Isaac here. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, no, he definitely was someone that I think the Marlins probably had on their board, albeit, probably to a lesser extent, but that's definitely an option that's off the board now. And I agree with Mike that I think Contreras is that guy that they need to, go after hard here. It won't take a lot. Maybe one of those 2020 draft picks, one of those pitchers, and something else, but it shouldn't take that much. And that offense combined with the cannon behind the plate, he's been a swelling. He would solve a lot of issues up the middle.
Yep. Braves win the World Series, so we're gonna get into the I Loves Braves part of the podcast, of the live stream. Jorge Soler wins the MVP, second Cuban player to do it. The last one, as we all know, Livan Hernandez with the Florida Marlins. Isaac, your thoughts on this whole thing? We also have some former Marlins who won the World Series: Adam Duvall, Jeff Mathis, Alex Jackson, Dylan Lee, Grant Dayton, and Marcell Ozuna. So your thoughts on this, Isaac?
I didn't realize how many former Marlins, but Kudos to the Braves. Definitely not the team I was rooting for. You know, I had to root for a team that I also didn't like in the Astros. Just hard to root for by far the biggest rival that the Marlins have. But really, congrats to them. They did it without Acuna. They did it without Soroka. They did it without Ozuna. And they won it, I would say, pretty easily. Besides Max Fried's bad start on game 2, they won this series, you know, pretty definitively. So kudos to them. You got to feel great for a guy like Freddie Freeman. Kudos to him. He's been in the league for a long time. So he'll get his first ring. And also, Adam Duvall. Like, you got to feel great for him. He's one of the nicest guys in baseball. And for him to just, you know, get a ring also. Kudos to the Braves, although it kind of stings a little bit. Opening day 2022 will be against these world champion Atlanta Braves, so that's going to be fun. But hey, kudos to the Braves. By far, the NL East is the most successful division since 03.
We'll get into the outfielders in a bit, but Noah, your thoughts on this World Series? I know you've been watching it a lot, especially with all your reactions on Twitter. So yeah, your thoughts on that?
I couldn't be happier for guys like Adam Duvall, Freddie Freeman, Ron Washington. You guys haven't said his name. He finally got a ring. Jeff Mathis gets a ring. Alex Jackson shouldn't get a ring, but he gets one anyway. This team has been waiting a while to get themselves a World Series win, and the city kind of deserves it at this point after all that's been going on these last few years. And Freddie Freeman has to be one of the nicest people on planet Earth. I couldn't be happier for him, for Charlie, and of course Stone, Duvall, and Blooper.
Alex, your thoughts on this World Series? And, you know, we look at all these former Marlins, Duvall, who was a big part of it, Jeff Mathis, who was here for 3 years. Your thoughts on all of those guys, you know, as well winning it?
Well, one name you didn't bring up is Walt Weiss, who was the 1993 Marlins. So you bring him up, but he's in there too. So there's another Marlins connection. But no, great for them, and absolute credit to Anthopoulos for what he did in the second half, because they entered the second half. What were they, like 5 games out? And they get in. So, and they lost Acuna. So, yeah, and they lost other guys too. So, Ozuna, you could go down the line, guys, Noah, guys that they lost. So, yeah, I mean, credit to their GM. I mean, they constructed it at the deadline and got it done. And Duvall was a big part of it, as we know, other guys as well. So, yeah, that's a team that knows how to do it. They know the business. Anthopoulos is one of the best. So, real big credit to him. And, it's great for them. I'm happy for Duvall. I'm happy for Dylan Lee. He's a grinder. He grinded through the Marlins minor league system for a while, lefty guy. So yeah, that's cool to see. You know, it's really cool for certain guys like that. You know, as much as these guys are players and we view them as players, you know, you root for the person more than the player. And there's a lot of great people on the Braves. So it's great. And I'm happy for those guys, even though they're a division rival. Hey, it's good to see things like that happen. It's good to see good things happen to good people, right? So that's where I'm at.
Mike Anthony, I think something that we could all say is the Braves made some kind of a Moneyball move here. You lost Acuna, and then they acquired Jorge Soler, Adam Duvall, Jock Peterson, Eddie Rosario. I mean, that's just madness, in my opinion, at least. And they made it work, and they got the World Series. Your thoughts on them winning the World Series and all of that?
If there's anything that this Marlins team can learn from this Braves team is that, I think if I remember clear, when the day that Acuna got hurt, we weren't far from the Braves in terms of standings. They were struggling, and so were we. I know we dealt with injuries to a lot of our good players, but there's one thing that we can learn is that all we got to do is get into the dance from here on out, from this organization standpoint. Just got to get in and then worry about the rest. So, like, in terms of us just selling at the deadline every year, I think it's time that we try, if we're good enough or think we're good enough, try it to get some pieces added on instead of selling out Duvall for a catcher who's going to be backup at best. You know what I mean?
Yep. And finally, with Eli, your thoughts on the Braves winning that World Series?
It was a boring series, wasn't it? I mean, I guess one of the more exciting moments was Duvall's grand slam, which actually came in the game that the Braves lost. There wasn't a whole lot of signature plays from it. And so I can already see like Braves fans being a little bit frustrated by the fact that people don't necessarily celebrate this World Series as frequently as the typical one, just because it was like kind of lacking, I think, in really excellent moments. But they just played so incredibly well during the postseason, even though it was, I think anybody could say that they didn't deserve to be the favorite team entering the postseason. There were other teams that I felt were just more talented and more well-rounded. And for whatever combination of reasons, they just seemed so comfortable in these most important moments. And there wasn't, I guess, one characteristic that makes it kind of difficult to get your thoughts out about this team is that they didn't necessarily have one definitive leader throughout the entire process. Like even Freddie Freeman had his ups and downs between the rounds. It was a different outfielder that was carrying them in each round. Like it was Jock Peterson in the division series, and then it was Rosario in the NLCS, and then it was Soler in the World Series. That so many guys played well for them at the most important times that it's a little difficult to me to learn from that. Things just went really. They just need to credit the players, man. I don't. The GM Anthopoulos is getting a ton of credit, and I certainly do. The direction that he pushed the team in, to make it clear that they were still going for it and trying to take advantage of this division. That's great, but they just got the players themselves just tapped into the best version of themselves when they needed to. That includes the pitching staff too, Max Fried in particular, and a couple of Charlie Morton games before he got hurt. That I guess one of the other memorable moments is Morton pitching on a broken leg for parts of 2 innings. That was pretty badass. I appreciate that. So it was a likable team of players, even more likable with Acuna out, I'd say. But it was a really unique situation, and it's Braves fans themselves have to. I'm sure they're taking a huge sigh of relief because of very quietly, it's a franchise that has had this pretty extended stretch of playoff disappointment year after year after year, and finally that streak is broken. But it's also just kind of intimidating for the Marlins moving forward, because even though a good portion of these players are coming back next year, I guess the big elephant in the room is Freddie Freeman and just making sure they get him under contract. But assuming that does happen, it's still, they probably enter next year as the front runner to win this division yet again. And the Marlins are probably in a position where you're praying for an expanded playoff field. Like, you're not necessarily worried about beating the Braves. You're worried about having an extra chair at the dance that gives you that opportunity that they had in 2020 to at least get in the back door, even if you don't quite have the luck and expertise to put together this kind of roster. Maybe Major League Baseball is in that direction where it lowers the bar a little bit to opening up the playoffs for teams like the Marlins.
Yeah, and opening, I guess, a new discussion is how, with Acuna coming back now from the torn ACL, they have a lot of outfielders now. I mean, you could name them: Jock Peterson, Adam Duvall, Jorge Soler. Whenever Ozuna comes back, because he'll probably get some kind of suspension from the league. I mean, Noah, how do the Braves handle all these outfielders, and which ones could you see coming to the Marlins? I mean, Eli pretty much, I think, covered almost all of them on this show. So we'll get into you here first, Noah.
It's never a bad thing to have too many outfielders. But I think it'd be great for Adam Duvall to come back. That's a pipe dream of mine. But because he Adam Duvall is, as much as people like to bag on him that his numbers aren't great, he's a great player. He hits the ball when he needs to. He drives it and runs. And I know a lot of people say that RBIs don't matter, but RBIs win games. It's a simple fact. You can't win a game without an RBI unless some error happens or something. But RBIs win games, and if you have a lot of RBIs, you're causing a lot of wins. So.
Yep, Eli. I know you covered these guys a lot throughout the offseason.
Yeah.
Who do you think returns and to the Braves, and who do you think possibly goes to Miami? I mean, which one's the most likely option there?
Well, I don't care all that much about what the Braves do, but this is a Marlins show. So the one that I guess has the best, the two would be probably Jock Peterson and Eddie Rosario. Me personally, I don't love the Rosario fit. I feel that he has a lot of similarities with Jesus Sanchez, and I feel they'd be redundant, and that it'd be a mistake to necessarily give up on Sanchez in favor of bringing in Rosario. I don't feel as hot as he was during the postseason. I don't necessarily think he's better moving forward. He does a lot of nice things, but just because he can't really play center field at all, and just his plate approach, it's similar. It's really similar. I don't think that really moves the needle for them. With Jock Peterson, I liked him as like a buy low candidate last offseason, and then this year he didn't necessarily bounce back the way that we thought he did, even though he's going to be celebrated from the Braves forever for both on and off the field. What he did, it was he'd be the one that's the most affordable for the Marlins, just because we don't know if he's any good. I mean, for the regular season, he was a replacement level player, and during the World Series, I think he was on the bench every single game, and just coming off he did start a lot of the. Take that back. He started a lot of the World Series games. It was in the NLCS that he was kind of in and out of the lineup just because they had so many of these outfielders that were swinging hot bats. I would think it's those two that are the most likely, and I would probably lean towards Jock Peterson as the one being the best fit, and that doesn't necessarily mean he should be the top priority, though. I think they should aim bigger. They should aim for guys that have a steadier track record of not just offensive production, but really big power production as well. So we've talked about some of those other names before that ones that will be looking for a lot more money than Jock Peterson or even Eddie Rosario. But that's where the Marlins' focus should be. These guys could be decent fallback plans. It never hurts to have somebody in your team that has this World Series experience. That really is infectious in a good way across the rest of the roster.
Isaac, could Jorge Soler be a guy that maybe Miami considers, or is the value at this point maybe a little bit higher than we anticipated?
I don't see it as much, that would be a fun fit. And the other outfielder, we all know him really well, that I would say just makes really good sense, better than Peterson and Rosario, would be just bring Duvall back, because one, it would take the sting out of that horrendous trade. And he was really good in Miami. He performed well, and he's one of the few guys that no matter how big Lone Depot Park is, he'll hit it out. And he just, in the live stream, he was my first half MVP. And Craig Mish said a good point that, he's one of the few guys that Miami had where okay, these younger guys who are struggling, they'll go to him in the batting cages for hey, listen, how do I get out of this funk? So I think, and he's a great outfielder defensively, and he can play center field. He started in center field for the World Series, so clearly he can play there. So I think if you don't sign a great center fielder or you don't get one like Reynolds or whatever, he can play in left, Duvall can, or in center in a pinch, and he'll hit 38 home runs for you. So I think they need to bring Duvall back. I know some people are against that. I think we talked about it last night, but I think Adam Duvall makes all the sense in the world to come back.
Alex, could Duvall's value be, a little bit higher than from what the Marlins originally got him in the offseason? Because this is a guy who I'm pretty sure had 40 home runs in this season, and he had 3 in the postseason. He had the Grand Slam. Duvall really just sprung the talent that what he showed in Miami. He showed the triple of that in Atlanta when he got traded.
Yeah, for sure. No, he's value will certainly be a little bit higher than what was higher than what the Marlins got back for him. The Marlins rushed into that trade, and we all saw what happened. So that is what it is. But yeah, for sure, I agree with you. I think as a trade piece, yeah, for sure, definitely. But he's also got the team option. He's also got the arbitration with him. So, it's an interesting situation for the Braves. If they decide to trade him, then, yeah, it's definitely an interesting case. So it could happen. I think it's kind of like, I'm not going to say like bad business. It would be good business. I think it's like really bad press for the Marlins if they trade the guy and then trade for him again. You know what I mean? So it'd be like, oh yeah, we screwed up. Let's bring him back. It'd be like really bad. It'd be a bad look for the organization. But hey, I mean, if that's what it takes to
I'd rather the good player and the bad look.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what it takes to put together a winning team, though, then they should do it. But I think Eli had the guy that I would think would be most like, make the most sense in terms of what the Braves have in terms of outfielders that are becoming free agents. Peterson is a guy that, he hasn't been fantastic in the last couple of years, but he's always, you talk about getting into the playoffs. Mike talked about it. That guy's really good in the playoffs. He has 12 home runs and I think like 79 postseason games. So he contributes to winning teams. So, even if he's not that like home run, like absolute home run, guy to get back, it's another guy on the lower end that you could look at as a free agent and say, yeah, that would be really good. I was also in on Rosario. As you see the comment in the offseason, I thought he was a fit this offseason. But yeah, I think Peterson just because he contributes to winning and knows what it's like to be there and knows what it's like to win. He's got 2 World Series titles now. That'd be a good guy to be around just because he provides a service clearly to winning teams and he knows what it's like to win. So yeah, it'd be a guy that's good for the culture and pretty good on the field, especially if he can bounce back a little bit. So I like Peterson.
Angel, we should get Angel in here before his Wi-Fi disappears again.
Angel, welcome to the show, man. Obviously we see all these outfielders. Which one is most likely to come to the 305?
I think someone that would fit great would be Jorge Soler, being Cuban and fitting down here in Miami, where a majority of the Hispanic culture is Cuban. And like Glenn mentioned last week, I think it would actually help for the Marlins to get a few more people in the seats. And Soler's history and his like home run power can really help the Marlins. I feel like he would be a little bit cheaper than Duvall to get. He did just win World Series MVP, so that could have actually made it a little bit more expensive. And out of the 4 options, the cheapest would probably be Eddie Rosario. And like I see him like a little bit underrated on what he can do. He showed in the postseason that he's reliable when needed. So I think money-wise, Rosario would probably be the best option. But like achievement, like what would help us most would probably be Soler.
In terms of Soler, I do agree, but Eddie Rosario being the cheapest, I'm not quite sure. I think it would be more Jock Peterson because Rosario did win NLCS MVP too, so we have to keep that in mind.
We don't have to weight the awards that seriously. I'm sure these teams look past that a little bit. It is kind of tough though to like gauge it really well because Soler in the very recent past, in 2019, that's when he hit 40 gajillion home runs with the Royals.
Yeah.
So he's not that far removed. Yeah, he's not that far removed from a great year. At the same time, all of them defensively are a little bit different. Like Soler is the weakest defender of the group. He's a DH that you could put in right field if you absolutely need him. And he was playing terribly at the time of the trade. He was the one of all these guys. He was having the worst year before coming to the Braves, which means the like super recent track record. If you look past the World Series MVP, which seems silly to do, but that's what you got to do, then I think he's the one that's most questionable. You don't know exactly what you're going to get, even though the ceiling is pretty high. I have a tough time handicapping it, but yeah, I would say that I think Rosario actually he's the one that I would definitely think is going to get a multi-year deal due to his combination of age. And he was actually pretty consistent for a lot of his career with the Twins. But all these guys in the Marlins price range, the dollars is not an excuse. It's more so about whether they all even hit the open market. If they are truly, not being, the Braves have to make some choices. And so at least a couple of these guys are going to be true free agents. And yeah, the Marlins have to look under every rock. It's not that much different from the same catcher conversation that we had earlier in the show. Got to be exploring all options on that front.
And another option is none of these guys from the Braves. Because remember, Soler was a negative win player in 2021. Peterson has never hit above 250 in his career. Yeah. And Rosario, I agree with Eli. He's pretty, similar to a Jesus Sanchez type approach. And from a lefty bat, all these lefties that the Marlins are projecting to have in their starting lineup with Jazz, with Jesus, with Lewin, probably go, you'd prefer a right-handed power bat, in my opinion. So, it might end up being none of the above when it comes from the Braves outfielders.
We had to get the Braves Marlins connection into this part of the stream. And Mike Anthony, to finish it off, man, your thoughts on which outfielder maybe comes to Miami?
I was thinking about this earlier today in terms of like my dream scenario of options, and I think Jock, to me, out of the 4 of those outfielders who are going to be probably available, is to me the perfect fit. I know from hearing, the Rose rotation, all that the connection with Jock and Miggy Rowe is pretty tight. Mm-hmm. I think in terms of like, you want
in the minor leagues.
Yeah, but I think in terms of you want the best chemistry fit first, and then with the team needs, and I think that lefty pop off the bench would be like when we had like Matt Joyce in 2020, but like probably a little better in terms of power. I feel like that would be like the perfect fit, especially if our number one guy that we want is Castellanos. It'd be a good fit to have a lefty that can switch if we don't have a center fielder and we only have Brian De La Cruz.
Yep. Now we're gonna get into Arizona Fall League, which I think the big name here has been JJ Bleday, who's been crushing it, Alex, man. I mean, what can you tell us about all the guys, but I guess mainly Bleday, who's been the biggest name as of recent?
No, yeah, it's been really good for JJ and a joy to see. I mean, that's exactly what needed to happen for him in Arizona. Started out a little slow, and now he's just racking up hits, going to all fields. There's a great piece that was done I think, by Baseball America about what he did with his swing. So listen to that if you want to see exactly what he's doing. But yeah, I mean, just the guy that got a big change of scenery, went somewhere completely different that I don't think he's ever been to before, and is going up again. I mean, it is hitter friendly, so we do have to remember that. So, and it is just that he's had now 65 or 55 at bats. So, you just have to look at it and say, okay, it is what it is, and you have to see what it's like when he gets back playing actual minor league baseball. But for all intents and purposes, everything that he's doing is really encouraging. So that's exactly what you wanted to see. And the fact that it's happening is really great. People are looking at it and saying, okay, maybe he just had to get away from Marlins hitting coaches. I don't think that's exactly what it was. I just think that he's somewhere new. He's able to clear his mind. He's able to work on what he needs to work on without any pressure for him. It's not really about, being under the gauge. I'm sure the organization is watching, but this is where players grow, and this is where players go to grow more so than regular season minor league baseball. So he's doing exactly what he needs to do, and I'm excited to see how he begins next season.
Isaac, your thoughts on Blade? And I mean, who has been the most disappointing one in the fall league? I think Cam Meisner's stats are a little bit down, if I'm correct, Alex, from what I've been seeing. But I mean, yeah, thoughts on Blade here?
Yeah, he's obviously, the biggest name out there from Miami. And yeah, he had a 5-hit night the other day. And I think Alex said it perfectly. You have to take into consideration the hitter-friendly environment and also just the pitching ERA, the whole, for this year, it's been over 6, I think. So, you can't put too much weight on these numbers, but it's definitely good to see him have some success in in a league where historically the best of the best prospects are there. So, that's definitely good to see. Meisner, I know the batting average isn't exactly where you want it, but he's slugging, he's hitting the ball out, he's hitting the ball for extra base hits. And just like I said, all the pitches that are there for Miami, not fantastic numbers, but that's just, it's a very strange thing that's going on this year. I don't know whether it's just Arizona or if it's just a lack of pitching prospects there this year, but it's good to see Blade have some success for sure.
Angel, looking at the pitching side, we have Jeffrey Yan, who has been a surprise for us, not well known, and then we have Evan Fitter and a couple other guys. What have been your thoughts on the pitching, and if you want to throw in something about Blade's success as of right now?
Yeah, I think that the pitching has been good and everything, and the Marlins have always been a team that's had good starting pitching. If we're able to get good bullpen, and hopefully one of these guys is able to be future part of the good bullpen, that would really be helpful for them. And Blade, I think, has a good future on the Marlins, and hopefully he can make it up in very few years and help the offense that we need help on.
Yep. Mike Anthony, your overall thoughts, I guess, on Blade. And I think we could also say Banfield's been a little bit disappointing. So what have been your thoughts on him and the Arizona Fall League and Blade?
I mean, from the video, I've seen all the videos on Twitter of his swing adjustment. It's a big difference from his gradual progression in his swing. He came in from Vandy with a lot of moving pieces, and he's simplified his swing in terms of his setup. And I think it's been able to, he's seeing the ball really well right now. And I think it's Arizona. I don't think that's a problem. I think it's, when you're hitting the ball hard consistently, I don't think it matters the field. I think when you cut down the strikes and the walks go up, the way you see the stats there, 11 Ks to 10 walks, I think he's just seeing the ball and just seeing it hitting right now. It's a very, very simple approach. The only question I have now is, does this help his stock to trade him, or does it help him to get in the big league roster faster?
Eli, what have been your thoughts on the whole Arizona Fall League and Blade?
I'm back from my 4-minute dinner break to plug something that we have coming up tomorrow morning on our podcast feed. My sit down with Keith Law of The Athletic, where we do talk about JJ Blade, among other things. I'll just say up front that Keith Law is unamused by this. He doesn't necessarily put a whole lot of weight in terms of what we're seeing from Blade, which it is good. I may have missed this, but we should point out that the team that he is on, this is a real stat. His team is averaging 9 runs a game. So you just need to put that into perspective. These are awesome numbers, but they're not playing the same sport as we see in Major League Baseball. It is what they're doing right now it's the quality of pitching they're facing is underwhelming. It's weaker pitching than he was facing during the regular season at Double-A, So that makes it tricky. He's doing all the right things with what he can control in this setting. Not sure if it's proving a whole lot. We will have more of that on the podcast with Keith coming up. And I assume that Blade will be in the Fall Stars game, their all-star version of the game that comes up a week from Saturday. It seems kind of unlikely that any of the other Marlins will be there, but still a little bit of time to make a case for themselves in that scenario. Overall, though, just to see that he's capable of taking care of business. That's the terminology that I would use. It's just doing what he's supposed to be doing in this setting, doing what we would have expected from him coming out of the draft. Seeing him now, you wouldn't necessarily know that he had a disappointing regular season. So that in itself is a small victory.
Yeah, continuing with minor league coverage. Baseball America's top 10 prospects came out today. There's some things I disagree with. There's some I agree with. Alex, your thoughts on the top 10?
Yeah, so they're definitely going long-term youth for sure, because there's like 4 guys in there that are long-term guys, which is awesome. I mean, I agree with a lot of that, but and there is future value in a lot of those guys in the future of this organization for sure. But I don't personally see how you can put some of those players over some of the more highly heralded names that are playing well at the upper levels of minor league baseball right now. But in terms of long-term future and projectability, that's what they're going at, and that's what they see. So, yeah, it's a credit to them. They have Yuri number 1. A lot of people were excited about that. I have him solidly in the top 5. I don't have him number 1, but that's why we all have an opinion. So, yeah, I mean, it's great to see that they see a ton in Yuri Perez, because I think a lot of people do. But, to put him number 1 is definitely a statement. And then there's a lot of other younger guys in there as well. So, yeah, I think they definitely went youth over everything. The one thing I found interesting, they put out their 2025 projected lineup, and they're really not sold on Edward Cabrera as a starter. They actually have him as a closer. So that's something interesting that would be maybe interesting to ask Keith the next time you guys have him on. But that's or JJ.
Yeah, I talked to Keith about Edward Cabrera too, so he has some thoughts on that.
Okay, there you go. Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, that was it. That was the interesting point for me. But they definitely went youth heavy, and I like to see that. I personally shy away from placing a lot of those guys above the highly heralded guys, but no, that's good to see. I'm glad that they're higher on a lot of those guys for sure.
Yeah, as Yuri Perez is maybe one of the best prospects, top 5 for sure. I don't think he's number 1. I personally think it should be Eddie Cabrera as of right now, until obviously if he starts off with the team, he graduates, and then I guess Max Meyer takes over that spot. But Isaac, your thoughts on the top 10, and JJ Bleday is number 10. They have him under players like Ian Lewis and Peyton Burdick. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Edwards' little cup of coffee in the big leagues this year, you got to maybe not number 1. I know not a big deal at all. You'd be number 2 for me. I think just Max Meyer's season, the way he had it, and being the number 3 overall pick, he's got to be number 1 in the organization. 6, though, I think the 5 that they had up there would be exactly correlated with my 5, maybe slightly different order. Watson would be top 3 also. And some other interesting points was, Ian Lewis. I saw him at the development camp, and he looked good. But to put him over JJ Bleday, who was a 4th overall pick from Vanderbilt in the 2019 draft after once, mediocre, pretty bad year. That was interesting to me. And just looking at the 1 through 8, with Salas at number 8, it's a good looking system for sure. And then them having in the projected lineup for 2025, having Garrett Cooper as the designated hitter, made me chuckle a little bit. I thought that was amusing. There's so many other guys that they could have. Cooper would be 34 years old at that point. So, that seems a little,
and coming off Tommy John surgery.
Exactly, a little optimistic, but hey, with the DH coming, anything can happen.
I like how we talk about Cooper being the odd man out, or at least some of us that, and then they have this guy as the DH in 2025. Angel, what are your thoughts on the whole list, and I guess if you would make any changes to it?
I think like the list, like they've said that they're looking at it like future wise mainly. More than like who's able to do what right now. But if it's future wise, I think the list is pretty okay. If it was more like right now, Bleday would probably be a little bit higher up on that list. But the way it looks is like they're trying to set up for the future, like 2025.
Yeah. Mike Anthony, your thoughts on this list, and I guess Do you think Meisner should be in that top 10? And then I guess I want to go in a little bit into Sixto.
I think from the list perspective, I think they just picked who they see in the next 5 years. The same with the lineup thing. But obviously, us knowing the players in the list, that some people just didn't get ranked correctly. But in the sense of other teams, if we really want to make trades this offseason, I think it kind of helps us trying to keep some of those guys who are more big league ready, and seeing these younger guys who probably won't be ready for playing time anytime soon. Maybe it helps us in the trade market that they see someone like Jose Salas or Ian Lewis up here in the rankings instead of trying to trade a Burdick or Blade.
Alex, I want to go a little bit into Sixto because I guess we're talking about this in our group chat earlier today with how Craig Mish is out in a way out on Sixto. I mean, why shouldn't we be out on Sixto Sanchez, and what could the future hold for this guy? Because he played playoff baseball. He pitched a great game against the Chicago Cubs. We saw him during the regular season, and he was pretty good, actually. He was really good. He had a good couple of starts. I don't have the stats on me, but I mean, why not? Why would people be giving up on him, and why shouldn't we?
Well, the reason that you shouldn't is because he has really good stuff. That's basically the one reason why you shouldn't give up on him, is because he can go up to 100 and he's got really good breakers. So that's the one reason that you should not give up on the guy. The reason that a lot of people are, I mean, I'm not necessarily out on him whatsoever. I still have him in my top 10 prospects list, but the reason that a lot of people are getting out on him is, one, the health, and two, the work ethic, because we've heard a lot about what he's like around the camp, what he's like on and off the practice fields, and you hear a lot of negatives. So that's the reason that a lot of guys are saying, okay, we got to look at this objectively and really see if he can live up to his true ceiling. And then if he's not staying on the field, you limit it even more. So that's the reason that a lot of people are shying away from him. I think we need to give it a little bit more time personally. If he can't stay on the field next season, then it becomes a little bit more of a problem. So we'll see how he comes back. I'm excited to see that next season. And I'm kind of just waiting on him right now personally, but I can see it from both sides for sure.
Yeah, people can't really handle patience all that well when it comes to somebody that misses an entire year. It's natural. I understand that. Like, you can't really help it, but sometimes in your mind, subconsciously push a guy down because he's been out. But he's had the surgery, and I mean, from what we know at this point, there's been no significant setbacks to it. You mentioned the amazing stuff. I think that kind of also glosses over his incredible commands and just his pitch ability. He's a smart pitcher out there, and he has a bunch of different weapons. And there's nobody in this organization that I'm more confident in being able to get outs in the big leagues. It's a difficult translation to know which of these guys are going to be able to make that jump effectively. And we at least have a little sample that shows that he shows like all the indications of being able to make that jump. And so I believe in him wholeheartedly in terms of when he's actually going to be on the field, how often he's going to be on the field, on the mound. That's like an open question to me. And so as much as we really value Mish's perspective on a lot of things, and his batting average on this stuff is, I guess you'd say, over 500. He gets it more right than wrong. I think this is skewed a little bit by maybe one particular person in the Marlins organization that is out on him and is kind of regretful of making that deal. But ultimately, there are a lot of players that have questions about their durability and their work ethic that are among the greatest of their generation, and we kind of overlook that because of their performance. Like when you barely have any major league track record, it's easy to hold these things against them and to be able to have a tough time looking past them. But we also celebrate a lot of players who are successful in spite of having questionable work ethic. People loved Manny Ramirez, who just like rolled out of bed and hit and then stayed up all night. And guys that maybe this doesn't really relate to Sixto necessarily, but guys that were questionable teammates or even bad teammates, like Barry Bonds, and in some people's opinions was a pretty terrible teammate to a lot of players that he had. And yet his teams were often in contention, thanks to him. Like we look past this stuff once players have a lengthy track record in the majors. And Sixto is 23 years old. He hasn't had the opportunity, even if he was healthy, to really entrench himself as a superstar. And so I see him as a really high floor player, even though others will view it differently as a guy that has super high upside. I just see him as someone that if he's on the mound, he's going to get outs. He's one of the best players in the organization. overall, I was really impressed with this list. And I'd also recommend people, if you consider getting a Baseball America subscription, you could read the scouting reports. More important than the rankings, the scouting reports on these guys were awesome. Like almost all of them, these little details that I had no clues about, like very specific details about Peyton Burdick, the hole in Peyton Burdick's approach on pitches up in the zone and the adjustment he had to make with all the hitters, about mechanical changes that they've made. Khalil Watson, they brought up one in regards to him, about one adjustment that Marlins coach has already discovered about him, and he's already been trying to apply that particular change. Extremely specific stuff. On Edward Cabrera, like we were scratching our heads on this stream multiple times about why is he not throwing his fastball in major league games, and turns out he wasn't throwing it in AAA games either for whatever reason. So this was just a continuation of what he was doing down there, and that's still a mystery going forward, but at least we have some more context as to what we were seeing from Eddie in the big leagues, because it was successful for him at AAA, and maybe that played a part in why he was bringing it up. So I was really wowed by like the details that they had in there, like stuff that I really did not know, and will make me take a look over at my own rankings later this offseason and try to apply those details, because it was really useful stuff. And so I'm grateful that we get that and other outlets doing these rankings, because it gives us stuff to talk about and to argue about for sure.
Yeah, with Sixto, you could really go both ways. You could be scared about this injury that he had and the surgery, and maybe just doubt the way he's going to come back won't be the way that we expect it. Or you could say you could ride with the guy and hope for the best. I don't know if he'll be ready by opening day, but if he is, I guess he'll be in the starting rotation. If not, then that's a good discussion to have on, I guess, who could take over Sixto's spot until it's time for him to come back and earn his spot once again. I think we're going to end it here. Mike, Angel, thank you guys for coming once again. It was great to have you. And from Noah, Isaac, Alex, Eli, Mike Anthony, and Angel, my name is Kevin Barral, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out and go fish.